Hello, my name is Craig Seibert, and this short web seminar is titled Civic Excellence, Why the Church Should Care. If you're a pastor or Christian leader and you've been tracking with me so far through these web seminars, you've noticed that we've talked about four societal structures: the individual, family, church, and government. And I've alluded to the societal structure web videos that are recorded in a different section of the U.S. Civic's training site. And if you've not seen those yet, it will fill in the details of these four areas and what it means in society. And those titles of those web seminars, if you've not viewed them yet, are Society Structure That Works, Society Structure That Is Broken, Society Structure: The Church's Role, Society Structure: The Biblical Basis, and Society Structure from Reformation to Constitution. So I'm just reminding you again that the details behind this graph and all the details below it are recorded in other videos that you can partake of. My purpose here is to kind of overview that structure and then drive the conversation deeper for pastors and Christian leaders to consider. So I'm posing this question in this web seminar: why the church should care about societal structure, and particularly its role in influencing or teaching in the civic arena. Well, the reason it should care would be these. Societal structure has a lot to do with healthy individuals, healthy families, healthy society. It has an effect on poverty. It has an effect on caring for the poor. It has the effect on giving to world missions, giving to advance the gospel. It affects people's ability to see God. And it affects government as far as allowing government to either set itself up as a false god or keeping government in its proper role. And I've shown this graphic before, and again there's a detailed web seminar. When a civil government creeps out of its control and out of its boundaries, it usurps the authority and the responsibility and all these other structures: individual, family, and church. And dysfunction is bred in each of those categories when civil government exceeds its boundaries. I thought in this web seminar it might be helpful to graphically display some things that would provide some visual representation and impact. And to do so, I'm going to reference some work done by David Barton in two of his books, The Myth of Separation and America to Pray or Not to Pray. And the graphical representations I'm about to show you are based on some work that he had done and statistics gathered on when prayer was removed from public schools. And so they're kind of based on that framework, but you could also use the same question to analyze these trends and also suggest that this was the period when the church really began to retreat from society. And so when a church retreats from society, here are some of the impacts graphically and statistically that began to occur in the 1960s as the church retreated from society. Birth rates for unwed girls 15 to 19 increased 150% over a 20-year period. STDs for 15 to 19-year-olds increased 200% in about a 20-year period. Murder and arrests ages 13 to 18 increased 340% in a 20-year period. Aggravated assaults for this same teenage age group increased 360% during a 20-year or so period. What happened to the family during this time? The divorce rate increased 150%, and as David Barton notes, it then begins to level off, and the reason for that leveling off is people just began to live together and didn't even bother with getting married. Unmarried couples living together increased 600% later in this same period. In society overall, STDs overall in society increased 200% during this period. The number of violent crimes after the church began to step back from society increased 600% in a 20-year period. Cases of reported child abuse increased 360% in about a 20-year period. The rate of sexual abuse of children increased 700% within a 15-year period after the church began to remove itself from its ability to influence and impact society. Then lastly, looking at the workplace, federal prosecutions of public corporations increased 550% in about a 20-year period. All those things had been pretty flatlined and steadied up until that point of the 1960s, where God was removed in prayer from public schools but you could also use that as a metric of saying the church really retreated from society. And so, as I've already alluded to in this graph I've shown you before, when the church retreats, the vacuum is filled by another one of these institutions, and it has been the civil government. And when the vacuum is filled by the civil government, it operates outside of its boundaries, and all these dysfunctions begin to appear in the other structures. So the church does need to provide a vision of accountability to each of the spheres for a healthy society to work, and pastors and Christian leaders are at the forefront of being in a position to dramatically influence this. The question is, will they? I've used this graph in another one of these webinars to pastors and Christian leaders, and simply said in Romans 12:2, do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so again, we pose this question, will you be one that helps the church awake? My name's Craig Seibert. Thank you for listening.